Marriage is about support. Support, understanding, and trust, and if one of these elements starts to go downhill, then at some point the whole marriage can collapse if the problem is not solved in time. My wife decided that she could cheat on me at the expense of my trust, and for a while she did it. But karma caught up with her. Tyson Summers completed the final paperwork provided by Jason. These documents were essential for Jason to manage a specific portfolio, which happened to be one of the largest responsibilities Ty held. This portfolio pertained to the assets of Wilson Graves, a billionaire investor and entrepreneur, known for his aggressive tactics in leveraging his wealth for hostile takeovers of other companies. Wilson, often referred to as Willie, had a penchant for increasing his own investment value by acquiring control through stock purchases and then quickly divesting. Despite the collateral damage to others, Wilson prioritized his financial gains. As Wilson's legal counsel, Ty ensured compliance with regulatory bodies like the SEC, simultaneously facilitating Wilson's profit accumulation. The more wealth Wilson amassed, the greater the returns for Summers, Reinhart, and Haynes Inc. Jason had also made progress with his other clients' portfolios, and within the remaining 2 weeks he should have complete control within his reach. This would mark the completion of the 3-month process of transferring all of Ty's clients. Besides Jason, only Stacy Reinhart and Clayton Haynes knew about Ty's retirement. Ty reminded himself once more that it was time to let go and prioritize some personal time. After all, he, along with Stacy and Clay, had been instrumental in transforming the firm from a small, storefront law office into one of Columbus, Ohio's largest and most influential firms. This journey had consumed much of his time, and over their 20-year marriage, taken a toll on both his and his wife Bridget's personal lives. Last month marked 20 years since Ty and Bridget tied the knot, and they have 2 children, Jake, who is 19, and Tessa, who is 18. Both kids are thriving in college. Throughout the years, Bridget excelled as a mother and wife, while Ty spared no effort in providing for his family. Their spacious, beautiful home, coupled with their children attending prestigious schools, ensured they lacked for nothing. Despite the passing years, Bridget maintained her beauty with the help of her spa and health club membership, enjoying drives in her Volvo convertible with her long blonde hair flowing in the wind while blaring the radio. However, in the last year or two, Ty noticed a significant issue in their marriage: Bridget's waning interest in intimacy. Despite Ty's constant but weak attraction, he was disappointed by Bridget's disinterest. Attempts at discussion yielded only Bridget's explanation that her libido was at a low point, promising to address it during her next medical checkup, which had yet to happen after nearly a year. With their love life deteriorating further, Ty eventually ceased bringing up the issue, resigning himself to silence. Another source of concern for him stemmed from her frequent visits to her hometown of Mansfield, Ohio. She explained that she needed to assist her mother, whose health was deteriorating, and support her sister, Bianca, who was divorced and living alone. Bridget stayed with Bianca during these visits, aiming to relieve her sister and provide her with some much-needed respite. These trips commenced 6 months earlier and had now become bi-weekly occurrences. Bridget departed on Thursday mornings and returned late on Sunday nights. Though she maintained regular communication during her absence, calling every evening at 9 and ensuring her phone was always accessible, Ty found himself feeling increasingly uncomfortable during the 3 or 4 days of solitude every other week. He had grown to despise the loneliness. She departed this morning for her latest journey, leaving him to spend another evening alone. He felt more disappointed about this than he showed, especially after revealing to Bridget that he was working on a big surprise for her, due to be ready in just a couple of weeks. He even attempted to pique her interest by mentioning that Stacy was assisting him and nearly finished. Ty hoped that her curiosity, or perhaps even jealousy toward Stacy, would make her stay and inquire about the secret, but she only asked a few casual questions before starting to pack for her trip. Ty wasn't surprised by her lack of curiosity and simply let it be, leaving her to her packing. They exchanged their usual goodbyes, and shortly after, he headed off to work, knowing she would be gone within the hour. Later in the day, Ty wrapped up his work in the office, had a chat with Rachel, his secretary, and made his way down the carpeted hallway to Stacy's office for a quick conversation before heading home. He gave a customary knock before pushing the door open, a routine he followed with all the partners. They were accustomed to his spontaneous visits. "Hey, Stace, ready to call it a day? I'll treat you to a drink if you're up for it. I'm not in a rush to get back to an empty house, Mike," Ty said with a grin. "Hi, Ty. That sounds tempting, but I have plans with Roger tonight. We're attending a school play. Our son, Raj Jr., has the lead role in Pirates of Doom. Doesn't sound too appealing to me, but Roger thinks it's cool," Stacy replied. "Fair enough, kiddo. Your loss," Ty chuckled, though his smile suggested otherwise. "But I get it. I remember those days with my own kids and their plays. No matter how bad they were still our kids, and were allowed to be biased. It's a parent thing, you know." Stacy laughed in agreement. At 46, she still retained her beauty, and she was happily married for the second time, with the current marriage spanning a decade. Ty was familiar with her husband, Roger, and held him in high regard. "How's progress on my project? Do you have everything you need? I can have Jason lend a hand if necessary," Ty inquired. She glanced upwards and shook her head. "Everything is proceeding as planned and on schedule. There shouldn't be any issues at all. Just give me the go-ahead, and I'll handle it from there. Jason isn't necessary. He'll be occupied with what you assigned him. But as you assured, he's a highly capable worker and will be a valuable asset in your absence." "Ty, I really wish I could persuade you otherwise, especially about retiring. You know we'll feel your absence deeply. You were the driving force behind our success. I merely tagged along in the early days and enjoyed the journey. I'll miss you the most. Are you absolutely certain about retiring? Not a chance. And don't underestimate yourself, Stacy. You carried your own weight then and still do. You and Clay will manage just fine. Plus, we have a remarkable group of young talents now. Their dedication and hard work truly impress me. Jason, and maybe even Alice Chambers, could be offered partnership within a year or two. That's a possibility. I hold both of them in high regard, and your complete trust in Jason is evident. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll be attending the party in 2 weeks. Raj wants to join as well." "Absolutely, bring him along. All right then, good night." Ty drove to his suburban estate in Columbus. Situated on a 5-acre plot, the house spanned just over 5,000 square feet. It featured a hot tub cascading into a pool, a cabana, 2 tennis courts, and a spacious garden adorned with flowers and flowering shrubs that maintained their vibrant colors from summer through fall. With the departure of their children, Bridget had let go of the cook and maid, leaving the place mostly empty. Both Ty and Bridget acknowledged that the house was too large for just the two of them, with Bridget suggesting it was time to consider downsizing. However, she hadn't fully committed to the idea, mentioning they might wait a couple more years until their children were settled. Ty parked in the 4-car garage and headed to the kitchen, where he heated up a frozen dinner in the microwave before changing into comfortable clothes for the evening. As he descended the stairs, the sound of the ringing landline caught his attention. Hoping it was in response to one of his advertisements, he hurried to answer it, knowing it was too early for Bridget to be calling. To his satisfaction, it was a call regarding his boat, a 32-foot powered sailboat docked at Lake Erie for the summer and fall and stored in the winter at a facility by the lake. Following a productive conversation with someone who had test-driven the boat on behalf of the marina owner, the deal was sealed. They agreed to send a cashier's check to Ty's provided post office box once the funds were received. The boat's title would then be transferred at the marina. The buyer had already inspected the title during the trial run, so everything was set. Bridget would likely be relieved, as she had never been fond of the boat and hadn't joined Ty on it for years. With the boat sold and promises made for his Jaguar and Audi to the highest bidders, there were few concerns remaining. In 2 weeks from today, all arrangements would be sorted, marking the official start of his retirement. Selling the house might take some time, but he and Bridget would have vacated by then, allowing the realtor to showcase it freely. The smaller bungalow was now his, with some furniture already relocated. Additional furniture could be acquired whenever necessary. Ty absent-mindedly ate a frozen dinner and decided to recline, enjoying mindless TV watching and snacks. Taking a cold bottle of Miller Lite, he went to the entertainment room, intending to watch something for adults. When the children were not at home, he got access to all the channels and settled on a program telling about a hotel where the guests were engaged exclusively in intimacy. However, Ty found himself wondering about the lack of variety and imagination in their actions, while simultaneously destroying the fourth wall with the camera. The lack of creativity did not inspire him, did not arouse enough interest for further participation. At 9, Bridget phoned. Ty picked up. "Hey, Bridget, did you encounter any issues on the way?" "Smooth sailing, darling. The journey was a breeze. Mom's improving slightly, but Bianca's feeling the strain. I might extend my stay by a day if that's all right with you." Ty felt a knot form in his stomach at that remark, but he brushed off the discomfort and responded calmly. "Of course, whatever you feel is best. I'll just put in a few extra hours at work since it's rather lonely here without you. What about Monday? Do you need anything or are you all set? It seems like you didn't bring much with you." "Oh, darling, that's because I've left quite a few things here whenever I've left before. I'll manage just fine, so don't worry. And speaking of which, how's that surprise of yours coming along? I'm dying to know what it is." "I didn't realize you were interested. You didn't seem too keen this morning before I headed to work. But since you're asking, it's proceeding as planned. Stacy is almost finished with her part and the rest is all set. You're in for a real surprise. I can hardly wait." "All right, darling. I'll give you a call tomorrow evening. Take care. You too, just remember I love you." "Good night, darling." Ty absent-mindedly ate a frozen dinner and decided to recline, enjoying mindless TV watching and snacks. Taking a cold bottle of Miller Lite, he went to the entertainment room, intending to watch something for adults. When the children were not at home, he got access to all the channels and settled on a program telling about a hotel where the guests were engaged exclusively in intimacy. However, Ty found himself wondering about the lack of variety and imagination in their actions, while simultaneously destroying the fourth wall with the camera. The lack of creativity did not inspire him, did not arouse enough interest for further participation. At 9, Bridget phoned. Ty picked up. "Hey, Bridget, did you encounter any issues on the way?" "Smooth sailing, darling. The journey was a breeze. Mom's improving slightly, but Bianca's feeling the strain. I might extend my stay by a day if that's all right with you." Ty felt a knot form in his stomach at that remark, but he brushed off the discomfort and responded calmly. "Of course, whatever you feel is best. I'll just put in a few extra hours at work since it's rather lonely here without you. What about Monday? Do you need anything or are you all set? It seems like you didn't bring much with you." "Oh, darling, that's because I've left quite a few things here whenever I've left before. I'll manage just fine, so don't worry. And speaking of which, how's that surprise of yours coming along? I'm dying to know what it is." "I didn't realize you were interested. You didn't seem too keen this morning before I headed to work. But since you're asking, it's proceeding as planned. Stacy is almost finished with her part and the rest is all set. You're in for a real surprise. I can hardly wait. All right, darling, I'll give you a call tomorrow evening. Take care. You too. Just remember, I love you. Good night, darling." Once again, Ty noticed how eager she seemed to end the calls and hang up. Her response to his "I love you" was just a simple good night. Perhaps she was preoccupied with her mother. The thought brought a smile to his face. Her mother was quite difficult. She never cared for him and didn't hide it. But Ty didn't mind because he didn't care for her either. Nor did he care for her sister Bianca, divorced by her husband for infidelity. The whole family seemed dysfunctional at best. So, another weekend alone, Ty thought to himself. To pass the time, he called the kids, chatting with them for over an hour, reminding them of their upcoming visit in 2 weeks. Then, let himself relax. He drifted off on the couch and woke in the middle of the night with a stiff neck. He moved to bed and slept dreamlessly. It was unusual, but Ty welcomed it. Lately, his dreams hadn't been pleasant. Over the next 2 weeks, Ty proceeded with his usual routine, focusing on wrapping up his cases and ensuring Jason was fully briefed on each of them. During the second week, he devoted much of his time to contacting his clients and informing them of his impending retirement. Most of them expressed happiness for him and expressed their willingness to collaborate with Jason. For those who sought reassurance from Stacy or Clayton, Ty promptly arranged for them to be contacted. By the final Thursday, everything was set in motion, coinciding with Bridget's departure for Mansfield. As planned, Ty successfully kept his retirement plans hidden from Bridget. Her lack of inquiries about his work made it easy to maintain the secret. Moreover, she had forgotten about the surprise, and Ty opted not to remind her before her departure. He intended to mention it when she called on Sunday morning to inform him of her departure, especially if she decided to extend her stay for another day. In any case, Ty was prepared. On Friday, Ty's final day was filled with a whirlwind of activity. He and Rachel collaborated on tidying up the office and transferring paper documents to Jason. After making a few more phone calls, Ty instructed Rachel to forward all his incoming calls to Jason. As part of his plan, he had arranged for Jason to have his own secretary, whom Rachel had assisted. Before leaving work that morning, Ty instructed Stacy to initiate certain actions, to which she confirmed readiness. Later that morning, she departed for the courthouse, assuring she'd return in time for Ty's retirement party at the Radisson Hotel. Despite Bridget's absence, the celebration proceeded as planned, promising to be a memorable event. Ty departed immediately after lunch to attend to several matters that needed attention. By 3 in the afternoon, everything was arranged. The final documents for the house had been signed, and the movers were already en route, promising completion by late Saturday afternoon. Once the movers were done, the cleaners he hired would arrive promptly to thoroughly clean the place, with instructions to finish by that evening, and a promised bonus for timely completion. The realtors assured him that the for sale sign would be erected in the front yard by late tomorrow, and they already had a list of prospective buyers scheduled to view the property starting the following Monday. To their satisfaction, he had priced it competitively for a quick sale. Ty's final task was to ensure all financial arrangements were in order. Bridget and he maintained both joint and separate accounts, each with their own credit card. Ty insisted on this arrangement to avoid carrying a credit balance. Bridget was responsible with money and managed their accounts adeptly. Apart from Ty's private business accounts handled by a firm hired by his company, she was aware of all their finances. Although she wasn't privy to Ty's accounts at the firm, she never inquired about them and had forgotten them over time. Now that he was retiring, he closed all joint accounts and transferred the retirement funds to a new brokerage. Ty planned to manage their shared finances in cash for the time being, at least until they resolved all matters. Since they were moving abroad, their accounts would also be located outside the U.S. There was no need to keep domestic bank accounts since he didn't plan to return soon. He had already set up an online account with an international bank with branches in Europe and South America. Ty was confident Bridget would adapt smoothly. She had a keen understanding of financial matters. Eventually, he ensured the tickets were secured and the destination was verified. Ty envisioned the two of them enjoying several months at a stunning resort in Costa Rica, with sun, sand, swimming, sailing, horseback riding, and more at their fingertips. They had a plethora of activities to indulge in. Ty had ventured to the resort alone once to validate its authenticity, then instructed Rachel to finalize the trip and reservations. He aimed to have everything confirmed before retiring. It's worth mentioning that Tyson was quite affluent, having accumulated a considerable amount of wealth over the years. He handled numerous high-profile cases for wealthy clients and charged them accordingly. Thanks to his exceptional skills, his clients acknowledged his value and retained his services with substantial retainers. Tyson had invested his earnings in high-risk accounts and had seen significant returns over time. Being well-versed in law, he had legally transferred most of his funds into offshore accounts without any agreements with the U.S., which remained untouched. This fact came as a surprise to Bridget, who was unaware of these accounts. Had she known, she would have been astonished by their value. Importantly, this money was situated outside the United States and thus not subject to U.S. tax laws or jurisdiction. As the day drew to a close, Ty made his way to the Radisson for his retirement party. Bridget was unaware of his retirement and consequently the celebration, as he had made everyone in the firm promise to keep it under wraps. She had been urging him to consider retirement, but had stopped bringing it up over the past year. His retirement should bring her joy, though, as she had often complained about the amount of time he spent at work. He had informed everyone that it was to be a surprise for Bridget, and he intended to reveal everything to her on Sunday night when she returned home. Ty was confident she would be back on Sunday, as he planned to kick off the surprise that morning when she called. This was his strategy, and thus far, everything had proceeded flawlessly. The event was highly enjoyable. Ty engaged in lively dancing with all the women and conversed with the men, exchanging anecdotes about their most intriguing cases. Jason, present at the party, remained close to Ty for most of the time, ensuring no significant detail escaped his attention. Ty held a high regard for Jason, recognizing him as a valuable addition to the firm. Stacy and Clay attended with their partners, and Ty engaged them in lengthy conversations. Stacy and Jason were the sole individuals privy to all of Ty's plans, bound by the confidentiality of their roles as his legal representatives. While she didn't express it overtly, Ty sensed Stacy's hidden satisfaction with his actions. They danced together and discussed the final steps of his endeavors. "Are you certain everything's set? She's coming home Sunday evening, and I want her to be genuinely surprised. Can you promise that?" "Absolutely, Ty. Everything's in place. I've meticulously documented the checks and amounts, so she'll be pleasantly surprised and you'll be content, I assure you." "I couldn't be more sarcastic," she whispered. I chuckled. "She's in for a treat. I think it'll be fantastic. Oh, by the way, I've secured tickets for the resort. We're off to Costa Rica on Sunday night. It'll be a blast, just relaxing and enjoying ourselves. And trust me, I plan to indulge. I'll give you a call as soon as I get a permanent number. But until then, my new cell is active. You and Roger should consider doing something similar. Perhaps someday. Right now, I'm too engrossed in what I'm doing to think about quitting." "Well, that's your call. Please pass on my apologies to Clay for not involving him in all our plans." I remained until nearly midnight before departing. I had missed a call from Bridget, but she likely left a voicemail. Driving home upon entering, I noticed the message indicator blinking. I pressed the appropriate button and listened. "Ty, where are you? You never miss my calls. Listen, I'm heading to Mom's tonight, so don't try calling me there. I don't want to disturb her if she's sleeping. She's constantly tired and needs her rest. I'll ring you tomorrow night, so please be available. Good night, sweetheart." Well, just as Ty anticipated. Since she had already left her message, he didn't expect her to call tonight. He spent the rest of the evening packing his clothes and ensuring he had packed all of Bridget's belongings as well. With little time left before Sunday night and wanting to avoid any additional trips before the movers arrived the next day, Ty packed carefully and neatly, ensuring Bridget wouldn't have any reason to complain if he took his time and did it properly. Planning to stay at the bungalow tonight, he would ensure that all calls were forwarded to his new cell starting tomorrow. After transferring all his belongings to the bungalow, Ty wrapped up his tasks, double-checked a phone call to ensure the final part of the surprise was set, and then retired for the night. Exhausted from the festivities yet anxious about the tightly scheduled events ahead, he drifted off to sleep, hoping for a smooth outcome. Saturday marked the beginning of packing and relocating their furniture from their old home. While somewhat melancholic, Ty simply shrugged it off and left the movers to their tasks. He headed back to the bungalow to rendezvous with their children who were due around noon. Ty needed to brief them on his plans, having hinted at his retirement but keeping details like their move to Costa Rica under wraps. It was time to fill them in, with the condition that they keep Bridget out of the loop to preserve the surprise, a request he believed they would honor. Upon their arrival, he greeted them warmly and ushered them indoors before briefing them concisely. He kept it brief and direct, addressing all their inquiries with additional details upon request. Though neither Jake nor Tessa were entirely pleased with his actions, he reassured them about their college tuition being covered and emphasized their perpetual welcome home, wherever that may be. He also assured them that his retirement was a mutual decision between himself and Bridget, timed appropriately. While they wished to speak with Bridget, he requested they wait until her return on Sunday night, to which they reluctantly agreed. That evening, they all dined together, maintaining silence when Ty answered Bridget's call at 9 o'clock. She kept the conversation brief as usual, without mentioning any prolongation of her stay, so he anticipated her return on Sunday night. Following the call, the children revisited their father's plans, seeking confirmation of his resolve. He reassured them of his readiness, and as they retired to the spare room with twin beds, he made a call to ensure the movers had completed their task, and the cleaning crew was scheduled. With both confirmations received, Ty felt content. With one final call, he concluded his tasks for the night. Sunday was a day of minimal tasks and thorough preparation. Upon inspecting the house, everything was found to be in order. The movers and cleaners had left it immaculate and ready for viewing. Returning to the bungalow, he awaited Bridget's call indicating her readiness to depart, typically between 10 and 10:30. With the children out with friends, Ty was alone when the call came, answering after the first ring. "Hi, Bridget. Ready to head home?" Ty awaited her response nervously. "Well, yes and no, Ty. I'd actually prefer to stay a few more days to allow Bianca more time for certain tasks. Would you mind terribly if I did?" Her voice conveyed tension, as if anticipating his objection, though she likely knew he wouldn't approve. Ty heard the words, and for the first time felt the anger he had suppressed for months bubbling to the surface. She wanted to extend her stay. Why? Well, he knew the answer now, didn't he? He had known for over 3 months, enough time to start planning his surprise. It was time to unveil it. It was time to act on what he had schemed for the past 3 months, ever since he confirmed his suspicions. Now was the moment. As he resolved to act, his anger finally erupted. He had restrained it for too long, and now it surged forth. Struggling to contain his fury, he responded to her request. "Well, Bridget, my dear, why would I object? Just because you want a few more nights with your lover, Kevin? Why should I care now knowing you've been with him and that other guy, what's his name?" "Oh yes, Ben." His voice escalated with his anger, and he had to restrain himself from shouting. "You've been at it for the past 6 months. Or longer, who knows? But what the hell, it's been happening for a while now, and I suppose I was just expected to ignore it." From the other side, there was silence, followed by a sob. And then the line went dead. Ty held the phone in his hand, frozen, as if it were a coiled snake ready to strike. He realized Bridget had ended the call unexpectedly, leaving him surprised. Setting the phone down on the table, his hand trembled with residual anger. She hung up. He hadn't anticipated that, leaving him nowhere to release his pent-up frustration. Collapsing into the chair beside the table, Ty's phone suddenly rang loudly. He stared at it blankly, the sound echoing off the walls. It kept ringing, as the disposable phone he bought for this purpose lacked voicemail. Finally, he picked it up and pressed the talk button. "Hello?" That was all he managed to say. His rage had dissipated with the sudden conclusion of the situation. He had expected an argument or a shouting match, envisioning a fiery confrontation between the unfaithful woman and her betrayed husband. However, her unexpected departure caught him off guard, extinguishing his anger like a splash of water on a flame. Now he felt numb, emotionally drained and numb from the pain he had suppressed with his anticipated actions. With no outlet for his anger and hurt, he was suddenly powerless to halt the sharp ache gripping his heart. Bianca's furious voice echoed from the small speaker. "Ty, it's Bianca. Please don't hang up. Bridget is a mess, nearly hysterical." She stormed off and drove away. "What did you say to her? What did you do, Ty? What could you have possibly done to make her react like that? What on earth happened?" Suddenly, he had a new target for anger. This man was implicated in Bridget's betrayal, and equally guilty of his unfaithful wife. "Well, Bianca, my dear sister-in-law," he spat out, "I'm just encouraging her to extend her stay at Apple by giving her time to frolic with her lover, Kevin Clark. I am well aware of your hobbies. You are with Ben Stevenson. Bridget is with Kevin. I know about your dates, about the nights you spent together, just the four of you. It must be pretty weird in the dark. How do you distinguish them in the dark? Oh my God, you stop. You have to listen to her. Ty, it's not what you think. She doesn't like Kevin. It was a stupid mistake, and I'm just as guilty. Ty, Bridget's heart belongs to you and only to you. Please don't do anything rash. You two have a lot to lose. Please, Ty. Please wait until Bridget explains everything, please. When she arrives, someone will be here. There won't be many conversations, and I won't be waiting. But what a difference. She wasn't interested anyway because she preferred to stay longer to be with Kevin. She was definitely not interested in me, since she met Kevin. Now she will have enough time to be with anyone she wants to be with, so in the future the two of you should enjoy each other. Ty, please don't say that, Ty. Oh my God, no, please, Ty. It will upset her. She loves you so much that I will break her. Ty, you can't do this. You can't. What will happen to the children? What will Tessa and Jake think? Ty, you can't tell them. It's too late, Bianca. I've already told them. I told them the whole story and let them know that you both threw us out like trash. I told them what their mother was really doing this weekend when she said she was helping her mother and giving her sister a break. For your information, their reaction was positive. Stacy had a tougher time coping than Jake, but they'll likely forgive her, considering she was always a devoted mother, at least until Kevin distracted her from us. Ty, is there no chance for reconciliation between you two? Are you willing to discard 20 years of a beautiful marriage over this? Ty, please reconsider your actions. Please? Bianca, you know the truth. You and Bridget abandoned me and our children. I didn't do that. Farewell, Bianca, and pass on my regards to your mother. She never cared for me, and now she's probably reveling in this. Ty disconnected and glanced around the compact bungalow one last time. He thought to himself that Bridget would adore it. Chuckling at the idea, he switched off all the lights, left the spare keys and a letter for Bridget on the table, and exited through the front door. With a firm pull, he closed the door behind him, got into his rental car, and drove to Rachel's apartment. Finding her waiting outside the building as he arrived, Ty stepped out, loaded her 3 suitcases into the car's trunk, and held the door open as she got in. As she settled inside, she looked up at him with a smile, and he closed the door before taking his place in the driver's seat. Well, Rachel, are you prepared for this? She chuckled and gently rested her hand on his cheek. You can trust me, darling. It's been incredibly tough encountering you daily at work without being able to reach out or have a conversation. If it weren't for Bridget letting you slip away for me to catch and then arranging those weekends for us, I don't think I could have endured it any longer. Thank goodness for unfaithful wives. With another laugh, they drove off.
When I called Ty to ask about extending my stay for a few more days, I had a strange feeling that this might not be the best idea. I shared this with Bianca, But she just grinned and asked if I wanted to spend a few more nights with Kevin and Ben. The thought caused a pang of guilt, a familiar feeling that arose whenever I thought about the time I spent with them. But, as always, my desires overshadowed any hint of remorse. Startled, I reached for the phone. The conversation progressed as usual. Ty asked if I was coming home. His tone was casual, reminding me that he still didn't know anything about this other world, and it strengthened my resolve to achieve what I really wanted. Gathering my courage, I brought up the subject, asking him if he would mind if I stayed for a couple more days. I looked at Bianca, and her smile confirmed that I had made the right choice. While anticipating his typical response aimed at pleasing me, I pondered once more that Ty wouldn't object and remain oblivious to my true actions. I vowed to keep him unaware, as it would deeply wound him. My affection for Ty was genuine, yet intimacy with him had ceased to captivate me. Now I have found a way that allowed me to keep my love for my husband by entering into a close relationship with another person. With this person, I unearthed an unforeseen wild aspect of myself. I was completely engulfed in the forbidden pleasure he offered. I felt a sense of satisfaction within myself, driven by my own desires to spend additional nights with Kevin and Ben. I envisioned our upcoming time together, feeling a warmth at the prospect. However, my world was shattered when those words came through the speaker, hitting me directly in the gut. "Bridget, my dear, why would I object? You want to spend more time with your lover, Kevin? Why should that concern me now, given that you've been involved with him, and that other guy? What's his name?" "Ah, yes, Ben. This has been going on for the past 6 months, hasn't it? Or perhaps even longer. I can't say for certain. But regardless, it's been happening for some time, and I suppose I was just expected to ignore it?" I was rendered speechless. Fear and panic paralyzed me. I remember abruptly ending the call and bursting into tears, just once. That was all I managed before realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh God, he was aware. My life was in ruins, and I was on the brink of losing the man I loved dearly. I had to rush home. I needed to leave immediately, to intercept him before he could enact something dreadful. Snatching my car keys, I dashed out of Bianca's kitchen, started the car, and hastily reversed out of her driveway. I turned onto the interstate, heading home. I had to make it back. I had to. Typically, it took me 3.5 to 4 hours to drive, but now I was pushing my car to its limits. I disregarded any threat from police on the interstate and paid no heed to speed limits. My sole focus was getting home before Ty could leave me. I needed to speak with him, confess my love, and admit my foolishness. Despite my reckless actions, Kevin, Ben, and Bianca were already out of my life. I was willing to sacrifice everyone else if Ty would stay with me. Repeatedly, I practiced the words I'd use to convince him not to abandon me. Bianca and her lifestyle attracted me, and my fading attraction became a problem that she assured me would disappear if I contacted someone I didn't feel obligated to please or who I didn't care about. She persuaded me this would reignite my desire and benefit Ty. Initially, I merely intended to reclaim my drive. Yet, I succumbed to desire and the excitement of taboo. I believed it would rejuvenate me, and I'd bring that energy back to my marriage. I felt confident it would work, that Ty would understand. He had to. But later, miles away, I pondered the question Ty would inevitably pose. Why hadn't any of that desire translated into our relationship? Why had we not been intimate in the 6 months since my affair began? It was a question I couldn't answer. I had to find one. I had to think. I was still grappling for words to respond to that question as I pulled into our home's driveway. My surprise surged upon seeing 4 cars parked there. I identified my children's vehicles among them, their presence unexpected. Yet, swiftly, a sense of foreboding washed over me. Maneuvering around them onto the grass, I halted abruptly and scrambled out of my car, hurrying towards the house. In the midst of my approach, I noticed someone emerging from one of the unfamiliar vehicles, advancing to intercept me at the front door. Disregarding him, I reached for my keys. Despite his attempt to obstruct me, I pushed past and inserted my key into the lock. To my dismay, it failed to turn. Trying repeatedly, I grew increasingly frantic, but to no avail. Discarding the key on the porch, I buried my face in my hands, succumbing to tears. I turned towards the door, and began vigorously knocking on it with my fists. I continued pounding until the pain in my hands compelled me to cease. Glancing around, I spotted the man who had exited the car still standing nearby. He inquired if I was Mrs. Tyson Summers, to which I affirmed with a nod. Handing me an envelope, he uttered in a hushed tone, "You are served, madam." Then, he retrieved another smaller envelope and presented it to me, stating, "These are the keys to your new residence. The address is enclosed, and the property is yours free of encumbrance. Inside, you'll find the deed and all necessary information." I held both envelopes in my hands, staring at him blankly. My mind was clouded with sadness and anguish. From his coat pocket, he retrieved a legal-sized white envelope and handed it to me. Inside are several checks representing the total balance of our closed savings and checking accounts. The house has been put up for sale, and once it's sold, the proceeds will be yours. All of this is outlined in the divorce papers, with terms clearly defined. Closing his briefcase, he got ready to leave. From his jacket pocket, he pulled out a business card. "Just in case you've forgotten, this is your husband's attorney's contact information." He moved away and got into his car, exchanging words with the person in the adjacent vehicle whom I didn't recognize, before reversing out and departing. I stood there, holding the envelopes he had handed me, momentarily stunned. Glancing at the business card, I saw the name Stacy Reinhardt, igniting a surge of anger that swiftly dissipated. Stacy was a problem confined to my own thoughts, a realization I had come to over time. Yet, I had often wielded it as a tool to incite guilt in Ty. Now, with newfound understanding, I couldn't help but notice her approaching me. "Hey, Bridget. You don't seem to be doing well today. I just wanted to give you a heads up. Ty asked me to take care of things while he's away. If you're curious and have questions, I can provide some answers. Firstly, Ty officially retired last Friday. We threw a party for him, and it was a big success with lots of people saying goodbye. It's unfortunate you couldn't make it, but I assume you had other important matters to attend to. Secondly, this house has been handed over to a real estate agent for sale. You previously signed a power of attorney, allowing Ty to transfer the title into his name. But don't worry, all the proceeds are for you. Ty left it to you in the divorce. Additionally, he purchased a nice bungalow for you, fully paid for and furnished. Your children can take you there. Lastly, Ty has given me full authority to handle his affairs during the divorce and everything else in the United States. He has left the country, and it seems he won't be returning for some time." She stood there, observing me as I processed the information she shared. Each revelation felt like a heavy blow, driving the stake deeper into my heart. I struggled to catch my breath, shocked by the sudden collapse of my life. Though I wanted to speak, words failed me. I realized I had been defeated by the man I had betrayed and disrespected. Someone I knew deep down was the only one I could ever truly love. Now, I found myself without his affection and utterly lost. In that moment, I felt more isolated than I had in 2 decades. Despite having my children in my life, I had lost my connection to everything I held dear. It was a loneliness unlike any I had ever experienced. "I can't fathom why you did this to Tyson, Bridget. Having worked alongside him for 15 years, I know he cherished you and your children above all else. Discovering your actions nearly destroyed him. Roger and I supported him through that turmoil, ensuring he remained composed enough to strategize. We prevented him from acting impulsively. Just so you're aware, he contemplated suicide, but we dissuaded him by emphasizing his responsibilities to your children. He's now with someone else who also supported him during the crisis you caused with your actions. It doesn't matter who she is, only that she's with him and will take care of him as things unfold. Tyson won't agree to speak with you, and he doesn't care if you contest the divorce. That decision is mine, not his. So do as you wish. Just understand that Tyson is out of your life for good." She turned and headed back to her car. Without glancing back, she got into the passenger seat, and the car drove off. I walked slowly down the driveway to where my children stood by the cars. I had to confront them and endure their anger and disapproval, but I no longer cared. I had betrayed my husband, their father, and lost him, and nothing else mattered. Their anger wouldn't change anything. Nothing they could say or do could hurt as much as the words I heard from Ty that morning. They stung so deeply, and all he did was speak the truth as he saw it. Stopping in front of Jake and Tessa, My grief overwhelmed me, bringing me to my knees. Jake lent a hand to help me up, but his expression betrayed no concern. Instead, I saw anger, disgust, disappointment, but no sympathy. It hurt, and I couldn't hold back my sobs. Rather than embracing me, my daughter stood before me, arms crossed, her face reflecting her brother's. Losing Ty and my marriage hadn't prepared me for the pain of seeing my children's judgment. It was unbearable. I wept for my losses while my children stood by, offering no solace. I had lost them too. Turning to look at the home Ty and I had built, I felt a pang of nostalgia. That house had been my pride, my sanctuary. Now it was all gone. My husband, my marriage, my children's love, and our home. What have I done? Why didn't I think about the consequences? It never crossed my mind, but now I know. Consequences are unforgiving.